Oh my goodness, what game am I playing today? Could be anything. So I'm getting on here and I'm doing this rant or ramble because I keep talking to myself and thinking about this, and I figure this is worth putting out there, right? So the main point is I think that there are. I've often had this issue where I find that people often accept certain things and then use that in analysis, abstract analysis, and use that to make conclusions about things. And I think that that's probably okay. But also, I find that a lot of the implicit assumptions that those people are making, whenever I think about it, I find, well, hold on, that doesn't seem quite right. Seems like there might be a flaw in that thinking. And that's what I'm going to do today. Had a few drinks, so I'm in a bit of a rambling mood. But the main point is, and I probably should have started with this because everybody has clicked off at this point. But also, I think that if you've clicked off at this point, you're not going to be able to handle this kind of video because this kind of communication style is just how I do it. So you're just going to have to deal with it. So after 95 seconds, I will now actually address the point. I think that we think about intelligence wrong. I think that the way that we measure it, the cultural idea of what intelligence is fundamentally flawed. And I think that causes all kinds of problems. I think it's a big cause of imposter syndrome, both because I think that people who are actually very smart are often thought of as fools, and people who are actually smart, or people who are actually probably not that smart, or we'll say just normal people, frankly, are told that they're smart, and people think they're smart, but really they're just normal people. And I'll explain more of what I mean by that in a second. This is very personally motivated because I consider myself to be kind of one of these just like normal people that comes off, that can be smart because of, we'll get into it. Okay. So how do we measure intelligence right now? Well, intelligence is associated with academic performance. If you think about somebody that is good at math or good at physics, it's very culturally ingrained that people who are good at those things are the smart people. And maybe culturally that makes sense, because if that wasn't the case, then people wouldn't believe anything they said, right? The conclusions that if they're not smart, then that means that all the work that they do is invalid and it's worth questioning. Although people question all that anyway. But basically what intelligence measures is it seems to try to measure, and mostly IQ is the way that that's done. But that what that is has been ingrained into this idea of what people think of intelligence to be. Basically, IQ, intelligence, seems to be your ability to do the things that are necessary in a combination of detailed and abstract analysis that lead to absolute conclusions based on kind of logical systems, either that you create and come up with, or that someone else has created, and your ability to understand that. That seems to be what we think of as intelligence, or at least that's what culturally it seems to be, right? The nerd kind of stereotype. One flaw with that is that, well, first of all, let's just question the whole thing. Why is it that we consider that to be intelligence, right? Well, there's the argument of the G factor, and the idea of the G factor is that there's really one unifying thing that defines how smart a person is. And I'm not opposing that. But what I'm saying is that that is not the same thing as what we think of as IQ. So like an SAT, ACT score, right? That's designed to measure basically your academic IQ, your ability to do that kind of work. That's what that measures. It measures your ability to understand what you read and infer exactly what it means and to solve problems based on that and come to exact conclusions. That's what that measures. I don't think that's a G. I think that is a particular aspect of cognition that involves highly concentrated bursts of working memory combined with logical analysis, and some reflection and ability to store information, right? So it's actually a very small subset of what the human brain does, right? And it's actually very slow. It's very constrained. If you can imagine a day-to-day situation, right? Let's say that you're doing something at work, right? And you need to get something done. A lot of the times you can't spend 30 minutes sitting down and thinking through, well, let me figure out what the best solution to this problem is. No, you can't really do that because you're going to get fired if you have to do that, because at the end of the day, all you probably really had to do is send an email or make something look nice enough so that whoever's employing you is happy with it, right? That's how you solve that problem, right? And that's a very kind of common sense kind of thing that you could argue is stupidity, right? And what I often find is that the people who are particularly good at the kind of intelligence that I described, like academically, and what people think of as intelligent, they tend to guard that very highly. I think that comes from a place of insecurity, because those people know that if they weren't able to think like that and do that, they would essentially be useless, worthless people that cannot function in society. Or they can do it, but they function at a very low level, right? And they use this, I'm smart, I can think like this, I can do this, right? But it doesn't really mean anything, right? It can mean something, right? If you use that to craft a life for yourself that is specifically built around doing that, then yeah, right? But if you're just using that to make yourself feel superior to other people, that's just that's just crazy, right? Because I don't think that intelligence is really your ability to solve logical problems based on information that you're given and assumptions that you know. I think intelligence, my thought is that, and this is going to sound crazy because it's basically what I'm describing as a high-functioning sociopath, okay? But I don't think all people like this are sociopathic. So I think it's your ability to understand how things work, how people work, how you work, etc. Basically, your just ability to understand things, right? Then your ability to use that to understand how things work and what will happen if you do certain things and if other people do certain things or certain things play out, right? And then your ability to use that information and that ability to get the things that you want, right? So you want something, you have this intelligence or G factor, an ability to do it, and then you apply that ability and you're able to get it. If you're able to get it, right, we would say that you're an intelligent person. If you're not able to get it, then we could say that you're not an intelligent person. This is going to trigger a lot of people because what this basically immediately does is anybody that does well on IQ tests or has good grades or has some kind of prestigious position but doesn't get paid a lot is going to immediately get angry at this because it completely discards their ego, right? Because I think those types of people, if all you have is that kind of analytical intelligence, you're going to attach your ego to that, right? And it's like, well, that makes me smarter. But if we say that that's not what intelligence actually is, you're just a different kind of person, right? That's good at that. That doesn't mean that you're smart, right? And in fact, people who are actually smart can probably do what you do, and some do, and they probably do it better than you do, right? And that would, makes those people really, really upset. But I want to come back to this, right? So if this is triggering you, and you're like, just confused because it's like, well, then how come people always say that I'm smart, but I just can't seem to get what I want. I can't seem to. Well, first of all, it's probably not you. It's probably the environment. If you're smart enough, you will find a way, right? And especially if you strip away all, but people are lazy, right? And that's, I think, part of it too. But if you're really smart enough, or based on the way that I defined it, right, you'll find a way no matter what, right? But you can be pretty reasonably intelligent, and I'll get back to that in a second, what I mean by that. I think you can be pretty reasonably intelligent and not be able to do that simply because of your environment, right? If no matter if you're able to understand, okay, well, here's how things work. Here's all the things I could do. No matter what I do, there's a very low chance that I'll actually succeed. Right? That's, I think, that's where the doomer thing comes from. It's just an objective assessment based on, you weighing your options and thinking through things and what you could do and realizing there really is not much that I can do to get what I want. There's just no way to do it. And that sucks. That really sucks. Now, I want to come back to what I said by reasonably intelligent. So when most people think, let's say an IQ of 100, right? So, and I know I've kind of disregarded the way that that's measured, right? But let's just take the whole idea of having a distribution of intelligence, right? Where 100 is in the middle, based on the way that I'm defining it, okay? I don't think that is a person that is average at everything. I think that is a person that is, because if you think about it, what you tend to have is a bunch of traits, right? And people kind of get the lottery on how good they are at things or whatever. And some cognitive functions you're good at and some you're not so good at, right? I think the 100 IQ person in this example is going to be the person that is good at some things and bad at other things, right? So because of that, they're kind of constrained in what they can do. And usually it's pretty easy to figure out what you do, right? It's like, well, I can't do these things. I just straight up can't do them. But I can do these things, right? Along with, usually just basic kind of like, human experience, right? And so, but what about the people who are average at everything? Well, I think the people who are average at everything, I think that those people are actually, I would consider those people reasonably intelligent, actually, right? Because you're not missing anything, right? I think that what causes that, like, block, right, or that, what if you think about most people, it's just some things you're going to be good at and some things you're just going to be abysmal at. But when you're really abysmal at something, you just straight up can't do it. You're blind to it. There's nothing you can, right? So, and that block just prevents you from being able to do certain kinds of things and think through certain kinds of, and do, if you're average at everything, you're not really going to miss anything. You're not going to be exceptional at anything, right? And you are going to be capped because at a certain level of problem solving and capability, you just won't be able to do it because it's just too much, right? But you can pretty much do everything at a reasonable average level, right? And so because of that, I think those people are probably around like 120, right? In terms of like this kind of IQ that I think, in terms of IQ, okay? And I think that those people, I consider myself to be like one of those people, right? At least in this mythical universe I created to, redefine the way that we think about this. But I think a lot of people are like that, actually. I think that's actually very normal, right? Because if you would imagine what a normal person is, it's somebody that is just basically average at everything, right? Right? Your traits are balanced in a certain way as to where, hey, well, there's not really anything I'm missing. There's not really, so yeah. And obviously you're going to have people that are like above average at everything, right? As well as people who are really, really good at certain things. And those, I think, tend to be the people that are, at least some of those people are the ones that are, constantly defending their intelligence or whatever because of the way that we define it, right? They become physicists and mathematicians just to defend their own ego, basically. I think the people who are basically above average at everything are the ones that end up being the most successful and basically get whatever they want. And I think everybody hates those people. That makes it difficult to be those people because you have to constantly live with the fact that people are going to despise you because you're better than them. So that's a whole nother topic. But if you're just average at everything, it's like it's hard to get anywhere because you don't have like really a strong aptitude for one thing that you can use to channel into a marketable skill set. You somehow have to just figure out how to make it, despite the fact that no matter what you do, you're never really going to be that much better than normal at it, right? And that makes it really hard to advance. Now, I think you do have some advantage, right? Like, generally, I think being a person like this, I don't really have that much of an issue dealing with everybody or doing things, right? If I ever have to do something or I'm in a situation where it's like, oh, I have to do this job, I usually don't have much of an issue with it. I'm not going to catch on super, super quick because I'm not one of those people that can just catch on to that super, super quick and memorize 700 barcodes in like a minute, right? But, I can do it. But I'm also not a manager type, right? So it's difficult. But yeah, the main point of this video I wanted to get across was that I think we really need to strip intelligence away from what we're kind of culturally thinking it as, and really be more honest about it and be like, look, I mean, it's obviously based on, it should be based on more your ability to be successful and identifying what that is, as opposed to, oh, your brain's ability to do mental operations. It's like, no, that's not it's not what it is at all, right? Because then it's like, what about people who just rely basically purely on like intuition or whatever, right? You could argue they're not really doing any mental operations at all, but yet they become successful somehow. Maybe they're an artist or something, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. But yeah. But within this framework, it can make sense, right? Because if you use that, right, if that's how you process things and you're able to get what you want with that, then that would count, right? It's more, in a way, it's more accepting, but it's also more cruel, right? I find that, I guess the final point I'll make is that I find that the things that are most useful and honest are often both very liberating and freeing and peaceful, but at the same time very cruel and annoying, right? And that's just what truth is. The truth is always going to be those. It's going to be this blend of, well, that is just unbearable, but also it's kind of nice. So, and nice to accept it. Yeah, that's all.